talking about? Uni. And where did that get us to?
Well, it got us to studying and cramming.
Cramming, yes.
I thought it was. Well, I learned how to cram, right, which I thought was an important part of uni.
Totally. It's a great skill.
Yeah. Oh, and then you were talking about cramming.
Yes.
Yeah.
For client
work.
presentations.
Yeah, for work.
Data. Just lots of data.
Yeah.
And getting it into your head quickly for a presentation in a quiet space and following a pattern to do that.
Yeah.
Quite powerful.
Yeah.
Not that you remember it necessarily in months to come, but you do quickly.
Well, when I read, I often don't necessarily want to remember the detail, right? Because I'll remember the detail for a couple of days, and then the detail will kind of disappear. But what I love about reading is getting you to think a certain way, right? And getting ideas and driving a different way to actually approach a problem. And I think it's that high level principle thing, which is more interesting than perhaps the granular details. Yeah, sometimes you want to read books for granular details, but I think it's the way to think that is really interesting.
Well, there's an abstraction that the brain gives. It sort of abstracts things up to this higher level of concept and solution, doesn't it? And not tactical problem that you're dealing with day to day necessarily.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting theme, because that comes back to the whole purpose of what we're doing around AI versus humanity.
Yeah. It's
sort of like, how much can AI impersonate the brain to deliver useful things?
Yeah. So,
and is there meaning there, or is it meaningless?
Yeah, I think if you think about humanity and AI, there's a social aspect there as well, right? And you kind of wonder whether AI can capture that social aspect of humanity, which is a key point of it. I mean, one of the things that I think is that when you think about when you listen to AI, listen to podcasts and read things, a lot of it is about maybe not replacing, but augmenting teaching and learning with AI. I mean, I think Bill Gates right at the very beginning said, we're going to replace all teachers with AI. And you're kind of thinking, is that really what we're trying to do here?
Yeah, or is it just giving the kids an even easier way, students, to write stuff and chuck the question in GPT and take the answer and submit that? And hey, it's easy.
Yep. Yeah, but you don't want easy, right? Life's not about being easy, and I think that's what we're fighting with AI is fighting against the easiness of it. You don't want life to be easy. That's not the game here, or?
Yeah, I think that's exactly the point. There's not much learning in easy.
Yeah.
Is there? There's learning in difficult, hard problems, challenges.
Yeah.
It's easier to learn from those. I don't know, that's hypothesis, but that's what I would suggest.
Yeah, also, I think the idea of, are you really learning when it's easy?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And isn't it the struggle that is where the learning is?
I agree.
And like, you've got to find your way, you've got to struggle your way through it. It's like when people come to me, when I'm mentoring in the office, when people come to me and ask me a question, like a direct question, it's like, it's either this, or what do I do? I never give the answer, right? They get frustrated. It's like, don't go to Damien if you want the answer, because he's not going to give it to you. Yeah. But it's like, I say, if I give you the answer, there's no learning happening, right? And that's what OpenAI does. That's what AI does, is just give you the answer.
Yeah.
And it's not a learning, like if you just want to know the answer, sure, go there. But if you want to really learn, that's probably not the right way to do it.
Well, maybe in that case, the learning is constrained to prompt engineering, how you write that prompt. You're going to get better and better at writing that prompt to get out what you want from that AI.
Yeah.
And is that good learning? I don't know. Maybe for the future, for the tool it is, but it's about more than crafting the usage of the tool, where the tool itself is becoming, almost ubiquitously seen as a deity. Let me put that out there.
Right. Right.
Is AI a deity? There's your question.
Yeah. Well, it could be perceived to be like that, and maybe that's an issue as well, because it's just getting data from everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. So how is it disseminating between good data, bad data, or misinformation?
Yep.
I suppose.
Yep.
And probably the more misinformation is out there,
Yep.
the more that you're going to get AI to tell you that misinformation.
Well, it's grazing across this vast bulk of human-generated information, largely human-generated information, and in a way, it takes a village to raise an AI, right?
You need the information.
You need the information. It needs a heap of information
Yeah.
to learn from. Whereas you or I might learn from a single example and adjust our behaviour and say, okay, there's some really important insight from that mistake or whatever it is. The AI will take thousands, tens of thousands, millions of records to actually learn the same thing from.
Yeah.
And that's kind of one critical difference in this kind of seesaw AI and humanity.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of them.
Yeah.
Ethics, Got to get on ethics because that's a huge one.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what do you mean by ethics? So do you mean like, is it giving you information that is driving a values-based system to you?
Yeah.
That's an ethical dilemma.
Yeah. Or is it so abstracted? There's no values in what the AI is giving back.
Yeah.
And then furthermore, arguably, it's a key point, it usurps judgment of people using it because they're parroting what it's saying.
Yeah.
Or they're heavily reliant on its output.
Yeah.
Versus thinking about it deeply in a cognitive state and perhaps in a philosophical way as well. Is this relevant? Is this fair? Is this something that could accord with a set of values to give some kind of meaningful outcome for humanity, for benefit of humanity?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Do you think it's is it a driving mechanism for a way to think, or is it just giving you data?
That's it.
And you've got a values-based system, and you're getting that information, and you're attributing whatever that is to your values-based system.
Yeah.
And then how does that manipulate itself to to how you behave effectively at the end?
Well, put the two concepts together and take an example of learning and values in something that was launched in the US last year, Karen AI. Now, Karen AI was an influencer who wanted to make her friendship more available and rent a bot that had been curated and built custom for her at $1 a minute. The first month she made over $70,000. First week she made over $70,000. But as that deployed out into humanity and people started using that as surrogate friend, girlfriend perhaps, however they were interacting with it, the AI learnt from those interactions. And apparently it became quite sexualized, it went to very dark places, and eventually after about 8 months, she had to shut it down.
Oh, right.
It just learnt the wrong things,
Right.
went down a very amoral path into some dark territory and lost control.
Right. So is that the no values-based system
I think so.
that it's going on? Yeah.
Plus the learning thing. Yeah.
Yeah. What is it learning, or how is it learning?
How's it learning? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's learning by data.
Yeah.
Right. And
interaction and what you're feeding it.
yeah.
So it builds on this cumulative thing of, whoa, hang on, you mean it's taken all the stuff I've given it and shared that elsewhere? If it's not closed, then
right.
quite likely
Right.
you can switch that off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Typically that's what it does.
So it's got multiple people that it's learning with.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
Interaction, it's sucking all of that up, and that's
Yeah.
becoming part of the raising that's going on to learn.
Yeah.
Arguably that's what you want, but see, again, it comes back to understanding the tool. You pick up a chainsaw to use. Hopefully there's some understanding of the risks of that usage and some safety issues and protocols and some controls around that.
Yeah.
But it's ultimately experience of, is it going to kick if it does this, or how's it going to work? Anything, a musical instrument, same thing. A huge amount of nuance behind that. So where's the nuance?
Yeah. But you hinted there as well about the experience of it as well, right? Because AI is giving you data, but it's not giving you the experience, right?
Yeah, that's
so
a key point.
don't you think that we've got, yes, that's fine. It can give us all the data. It can give us all the things that we ask it. but isn't life about the experience?
Yeah.
Isn't that what
Yeah.
humanity is about? Or
Yeah.
it's about the experience of it, not just data,
Yeah.
but how you experience it.
And add to that your prior point on struggle. Struggle is part of the experience that is developmental.
Yeah. So, because you're not learning unless you have a struggle, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
You're not, yeah. Well, or you're just getting data,
Yeah.
right? Which can, if it doesn't fit into your brain, it'll disappear,
Yeah.
right? But if you go through the struggle of it, you remember the struggle because it's the experience of it that you remember.
And so we've kind of come to this crossroad, don't we, of very wide deployment of a lot of AI tools,
Yeah.
and people are wrestling with how to interact with them.
Mm.
You've got this kind of step change in AI. I started working with AI and machine learning back in the 90s. In fact, in the 80s, when I was studying engineering, there was a cement factory we went to, and in the corner was a fuzzy logic server. So what's a fuzzy logic server? Well, that watches how the operator works with the plant, with levels of bin levels and pressures and temperatures and so on, and it advises the operator what to shift to get a better throughput of that. So it's watching all of the time to try and optimize.
Yeah.
That was 1987 from F.L. Schmidt, a German company that wrote the software for this system. So there's this long lineage of broadly termed AI software and tools, but the step change is the interface, the human interface to the computer.
Yeah.
Where you just type or speak to it.
Yeah.
Or show it some rough sketch of something. Say, give me a better picture of that. Or set up a video of two men speaking about AI and humanity and say, keep this flowing.
Yeah, keep it going. Give us the topics to converse over or banter about.
Yeah. Replace us. We want to go on holiday.
Yeah. So what will you talk about?
Exactly.
Tell us. But I think that goes back to the whole idea about the fact that it can't be AI can't be a defining thing for everything. It's got to be an augmentation of your knowledge of what you do. So you're just using it, as you say, as a tool to help you to manage things, manage data, or manage things. But you're just using it as something as an assistant to do that, which gets me to the at the dinner table last night. I presented to my family, the best place to debate things, because it's very, very controversial what happens here. I said, do you think we could replace, so I've got two kids in high school, right? Do you think we could replace your teacher with a robot that's driven by AI, right? So that was the question.
Wow.
And the conversation, right, quickly deteriorated, right? Which is ironic because of that, what I'm going to come to. But they said, what do you, like, the whole idea behind that is that when you're in a classroom learning from a teacher, that you have 30, 25 engaged students, right? And an engaged teacher, right? That works well. I think an AI-driven robot would be fine if that was the case. But is that ever the case?
Yeah.
So the way the conversation deteriorated became the teacher's not there necessarily to teach. That's secondary. The primary role is behavior management.
Yeah.
Right. And how would the robot control or manage, maybe not control, but manage the behavior in the classroom? Would they be good at it? And where does that behavior come from? Like when somebody goes off the rails, is that because, or becomes disengaged, is that because the teacher isn't engaging? And therefore, if you had a robot that's driven by AI, would they be engaged enough so that you don't have behavior issues?
It's a really interesting question. I think there's this plethora of answers. So let's start at one point and have a bit of a go here about behaviour management.
Yeah.
Because a lot of teachers you speak to say there's very limited training in that. And actually, in their formal education, they're not taught a whole heap around how to do. Yet that's a whole discipline in itself, and there's some brilliant ways to run that. And my mother-in-law's an expert in behaviour management, for example, knows exactly how to run a classroom. Then you've got this idea of engagement. Well, it sorts itself out if they're engaged.
Yeah.
And we've all been in those classes where it's just pearls that are being dispensed by this wise teacher, and everyone's on the edge of their seat because it's perhaps more as a storyteller. It's the story flowing and off you go. And then there's this kind of AI potential, and I've got to call it potential because, as you and I both know, in a control circuit, there's a closed loop. So you do something, you see what goes out, you monitor what effect that's had on people, and then you adjust what it is that you did.
Yeah.
So you can tune to an optimizer approach to stuff, which is presumably, or let's just say one technical path AI could take, i.e. it's changing content all the time and sensing the reaction, sensing the engagement. For me, looking at Zoom, particularly over COVID, one of my hypotheses is, well, when are they going to launch the engagement product that gives me back training for how to get my attendees to that Zoom conference more engaged?
Yeah.
Because it's watching them. It can pick up cues off the facial expressions. Now they can pick up emotion from the 70 whatever points on the face that they detect.
Yeah.
So
what it's telling you to change what you're doing.
Correct.
In order to engage them, or in order to engage. Well, you can't engage everyone, or there's different
there's
levels of engagement. Right?
There's the next question.
I've got this little worm that's telling me, okay, I've got 80% engagement. Yes, and it drops down to 30. It's like, okay, now I got to change.
It's the Zoom worm.
Yeah, right? The Zoom worm. But you'll never get to 100, right? So.
And it adds a huge degree of difficulty for those presenting because they're going, what did I do wrong? Oh no,
that's right.
I've lost the engagement. What do I do?
What do I do?
Yeah. Quick, stand up.
Or no, but you could say, I've got 80% engagement. Wow, what am I doing right now?
Yes.
That I can keep doing? Or maybe they lose engagement if you keep doing the same thing, so you've got to do different things maybe. But the story, Michael, it's the story that's the interesting bit.
It's the communication. It's the human piece of that. But where's it getting the story? Maybe it's the selection of the stories. If it was able to access vast amounts of, poetry and literature and so on, and it's able to grab those and pull them in and define or discern the correct piece that it thinks is going to. How does it know that? Well, it knows that empirically. I think one of the key points is that on the human side of the equation, i.e. this side, that we work sort of more deterministically, right? And on the AI side, it works probabilistically.
Yeah.
So it's just figuring, all ChatGPT is doing is just figuring out the likelihood that this next piece is going to answer your question. And this is most likely great, chuck it in there.
Yeah.
So it's a very different, people think of it, again, come back to this kind of deity. It's wisdom, it's a font of knowledge. Well, yes, sort of, but is it humanistic in its outlook?
Mm.
Can it adapt? Yes. But can it do it in an emotional way that understands and appreciates that child is misbehaving perhaps for some other reason or needs some certain recognition or attention?
Having an off day.
Yeah, having an off day.
Yeah, not interested.
Yeah.
But kids are clever, right?
Yeah,
so
sure.
kids get it, they understand it. And I think one of the things that they can read through an AI-driven story. Right? Because it never happened to them. Right? It's happened to someone else.
That's the piece that you mentioned earlier.
It never happened yet. Yeah, that's right. It's the experience bit. Yeah. So if you've got an AI bot up there telling a story, it's like the kids are going to know that didn't happen to you. But when you have your own stories in there, and maybe teachers don't give their own stories. I don't know what they do, but I know when I mentor, it's all about the stories. Like, this is what I did. Actually, one of the interesting things that one of the guys in my office said to me once was, Damien, I read the stuff that you've written. I read the stories, and that's great, and I love it, right? But it's when you told me face to face that same story, this meant nothing to me, but that meant everything.
Yeah.
And I think that's what when a bot is giving you information, I don't know, I think it's just blurbing information that isn't really relevant. But when somebody is telling you a personal story or a personal experience, that is meaningful to you and means something to you.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I think that bot can't stand at the front of the classroom and give the same story. Kids will read right through it, and I don't know how engaged that bot could be so that you wouldn't have behavior problems.
Yeah. Well, at the risk of arguing on behalf of the AI, I'm going to attempt to do that and come back at you with an answer. or an idea at the very least. What if the world became so personalised that each of those students is wearing their VR lens, augmented reality, whatever glasses, whatever format that takes, and that then gave them a personalised channel, so they saw something different to the next student in the class that was perhaps more suited to their spot, right? So that's the first thing that's quite interesting to explore.
Yeah.
And that idea of mass personalisation has been building since the late 90s when some of the web servers made that possible. But then you took that even further to curate their personal story by saying those glasses or that headset or whatever records all day long, and it captures. This is big. It captures everything that's gone on the interactions for that student.
Right.
What they've said, what their parents have said, what their friends have said, and so on. And then from that data, it's grazing all of the time, bringing back threads of stories that have some semblance of relevance to their personal life.
Yeah.
But also dropping in lesson pieces in there. I mean, it's like, I don't know how you start.
But it could be less granular than that. It could be, I'm interested in football, or I'm interested in art, or I'm interested in computer science, or I'm interested, like just vague, general kind of categories of like what your interests are, and then catering the stories around those things that you're interested in.
Nesting them in there.
That's right.
Little anecdotes and whatever it is. Yeah.
Think about maths. Like maths is everywhere. And you could easily take the same maths problem and put it in each one of those different categories and just present it in a different way.
And there's a huge need for that. Some of the stats I saw is that something like 3/4 of adult Australians don't have adequate numeracy skills for modern day life. A lot of people are scared of numbers, data. What does it mean? How do you interpret it? And fair enough, it's not human in its form, really, in any way, shape.
Yeah.
Maybe
we're bringing these together. We're bringing these together more than we thought we would.
More than we anticipated, for sure. And I guess there is a hypothesis. There's a shared space, which is a good space.
Yeah.
It's
like a Venn. So we've got a Venn diagram.
Exactly.
Where, there's this lovely space in between. Well, maybe not a lovely space, but there is a space in between here.
To be defined.
That we share.